using a unified criteria as we progress to the rest of our webinar. And I have, in my experience, received many different responses to what a pipeline is. So for the purposes of this webinar, we are considering a pipeline the visualization of the sales process. In other words, how are your opportunities progressing from one stage to the next within the transactional sales cycle? And when I speak about transaction, I'm speaking about the closing of a deal, the execution of a sale. It's important that we understand that the pipeline is one of the most important reports for a sales leader. Why? Because it helps the team understand the real potential of its prospects and customers, as well as it helps you all improve how you manage those opportunities so that you can be more effective. So that is really, really important. It's not just about seeing the information, it's making use of that information to help accelerate the time to close and simultaneously improve the customer experience throughout the sales process. And it's really important that you also know that when we talk about the pipeline, we are referring specifically to qualified opportunities. So we are always looking here at how do we improve our closing effectiveness rate. We want to close more deals, we want to close bigger deals, and we want to close them faster. So if we are all on that same page, I think we're going to be better prepared to understand what we'll be presenting throughout this webinar today. And again, the reason why we do this is because for some organizations, even leads are considered part of their pipeline. We don't quite do it that way. We think that leads are leads, and the pipeline is really looking at leads that are already qualified, therefore they're considered an opportunity for the purposes of this discussion. So having said that, we're going to progress to the objectives. What are we trying to achieve here? So what we want to do is, number one, help you drive more effectiveness in the sales process. So if you're a manager, we want you to be more effective in your sales management process. We also want you to be more effective if you're an account executive. And if you're in marketing, we want you to see how we feel that account executives and managers could garner more benefit and be more productive as a result of the proper use of a pipeline. We want to help you improve your opportunities closing rates. How do I get to close a higher percentage of my overall opportunities? We want you to also be able to focus on the opportunities of higher value. If we have 10 opportunities, it is very likely that 2 of them by themselves equal more money than the remaining 8 opportunities. That's the 20-80 rule. So we want to make sure that those that are of larger value are, obviously very, very close to your follow-up process, and they're very much in your radar. We want to help you have a more reliable forecast. It's interesting because 46% of sales execs are not confident about the accuracy of their pipeline. That's nearly half of them. So this is something that happens in all organizations, or at least in most organizations. And we want to help you improve your sales practices. So basically, that's in a nutshell the objective of this webinar. But before we get to the hardcore topics, I do want to ask you guys a couple of questions that I feel are important for context. So the first question I'm going to ask you is, how well do you feel your company is using your pipeline? So I'm opening that poll right now. It's open for you guys to go ahead in your screens and click on one of the options. It could be we're managing our pipeline very well. We're managing our pipeline, about average, meaning, I think we're pretty much at the same level as everybody else. Or, poorly, saying, we're not really managing our pipeline as well as we feel that we could. So I see that some of you have already responded. I'm going to give you another 5 seconds in case you want to go ahead and give us your feedback. Thank you. I see that we're still getting votes because I can see the results shifting. So that is fantastic. All right, so 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, I'm closing the poll. So interesting. You are now seeing the results. We are seeing that 40% of you feel that you're using the pipeline management. You're doing pipeline management very well. You have 40% that say about average, and you have 20% that say we're not using it properly at all. And what we have found is that, you know, the majority of people feel they're average or below. And that happens to be the case here as well. As a matter of fact, it's usually 20% very well, and then it's another 80% about average and poorly. So that's good news because a lot of you feel that you're doing it very well. And we're going to hopefully add even more value to how you're doing it today. And then 60% of you feel that there is absolutely room for improvement. So that's going to be, you know, tremendously helpful for you guys when we look at the results. So I'm hiding those results, and I'm going to ask you guys a second question, which is really about understanding what you believe to be your biggest challenge when managing the pipeline with your sales team. And we have no more than 5 responses. They go from you know, lack of adoption, meaning, you know, people are just not using the system, therefore I don't have a pipeline. It could be lack of inaccurate information, as in they're using it, but they're not really taking care of ensuring that the information in there is accurate. It could be inconsistency, meaning some people use it well, other people don't use it that well, and some people use it poorly. And then you have poor management use, which means we just don't have the skills to truly, you know, guide our people to use the pipeline adequately. And finally, we have other. So if none of these are your challenge and you have other challenges, you would select other. So I'm going to give you guys 10 seconds to please go ahead and complete this questionnaire to see where we are. Okay, so this is excellent. I have never seen the results that we're getting today. So this is really, really cool. So I'm going to give you 5 more seconds just in case somebody has it. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Here we go. So we're closing the poll, and for the first time ever, you're going to see that it was a complete tie. 25% of you said lack of adoption. 25% of you said lack or inaccurate information, meaning they don't have the information or the information is not the right information. 25% of you said, well, you know, some people use it well, some people don't. And, you know, 25% said it's management. They're really not pushing the pipeline the way that they should. So this is great because you're going to get a lot of value out of this webinar because we're addressing all of these issues as well as others. So we really appreciate your engagement in these surveys because you're going to see that the context of what we're presenting today may be very helpful to you. So thanks for that. As we get into the core topic, there was a research conducted by Vantage Point Performance and the Sales Management Association that demonstrated that 44% of executives think their organization is ineffective at managing their sales pipeline. We had here a 60% saying average or below average. So that's kind of consistent. The survey included 62 B2B companies, 39 of which have revenues greater than $1 billion, 37 of which have revenues greater than 250 million. So this is very skewed towards larger organizations, but I thought it was important because I don't think that reality for businesses of all sizes differ that much from this. So again, if we're not truly taking advantage of the pipeline management or we're not conducting adequate pipeline management, we're really leaving a lot of money on the table. So it's really important that, you know, as you guys look into this topic and you share with your teams, that you start giving it the right level of attention. I've told customers very often, look, if you're not doing anything else with your CRM, at least make sure the pipeline is 100% utilized the way that it should, because that in itself is going to probably give you the greatest value. And I think that 95% of our customers have seen that. So the first thing is, do we have a process? We can't say, oh, here's the pipeline, but that pipeline is in no way related to your sales methodology or to your sales practices or to the way that you sell. So that's something that erodes adoption, that creates inconsistency, and thereon begins the problem with managing the pipeline. So if you want to generate more revenue and you want to manage your pipeline effectively, you need to have a sales process. And it doesn't have to be overly complicated. It doesn't have to be highly sophisticated. It just has to say, hey guys, these are the key steps that we cannot skip when we're selling. Because if your stages in the pipeline are not equivalent to important milestones in the process, what's the purpose, right? So number one is make sure you have a process, okay? And that process, which we're going to cover today, usually looks at 5 key stages. And I want to make it clear that not everybody in this webinar are going to have exactly the same stages with the same name. So that does not mean it doesn't apply to you, but in some form or other, these are the same stages that are applying to how you close business in your organization. Some of you may only use 2 steps. Some of you may use all 5 steps. Some of you may use 10 steps that include some of this. So we're just focusing in on the ones that are critical. And the number 1 stage is prospecting. And the reason why prospecting is considered part of the pipeline, although I said before that leads are not included, is because you have existing accounts. And those existing accounts can't be considered leads because they already have a working relationship with your business. So at any point that you identify that there is a potential business opportunity, you would consider it in the pipeline as a prospecting stage. And here what you're practically doing is saying, okay, so I have these prospects and they have a particular interest in a product, and I need to find out more to see if these guys are qualified to buy my services. And some people say, oh, but that only applies to hunters, because those are the people that are out there looking for leads. False. You have existing business, and if you have a sales plan, you're looking at ways to do upselling and cross-selling to those existing businesses. Therefore, there are prospective opportunities within those accounts. They need to be also in this first phase of the process. Okay, so really, really important. And if we're looking to align that with the CRM, what we're saying is, in your technology, whether that be Salesforce or anything else, you're going to make sure that during this stage, you are measuring how many calls are being done. In other words, are we prospecting enough customers, and are we trying to move them from the prospecting stage to the next? We can't say we're trying to move them if we're not calling them, right? Or visiting them. And for those of you that are hunters or have hunter-type organizations, it should show the opportunities that you want to develop. Because at the end of the day, guys, if there are no prospects, there is no pipeline. So eventually, every prospective opportunity or every prospective customer with a legitimate interest in a product should be considered a prospect. Now, I want to clarify, if you have a lead that is not yet qualified, it would not appear as an opportunity. Therefore, it would simply be a lead in which you're still trying to qualify. But if you have an existing account, then it would go into the prospecting stage within the pipeline immediately. Okay, so I'm going to continue. And please, guys, if you have any questions, please type them in, and I will be more than happy to answer them as we move forward, especially if they're related to the specific phases that we're discussing. The second phase is qualification, which is to say there is a legitimate business potential. Okay, so this is that stage in which we validate that the customer has a real potential to buy our product. And that is essentially, and many people have other acronyms that are not necessarily banned. There's other things that are trending out there. But at the end of the day, the reality is that if they don't have the money to buy, if they don't have the decision-making power, if they don't have a need for your product or service, and they have no idea of when they're going to buy, it is more than likely somebody that's simply curious. They are not yet considered qualified. So you want to have a process that ensures that you're looking at least these 4 elements. Do you have a budget? How much is that budget? Do you have the authority, to make this decision to buy this product, or do we need to talk to you and other people? The better you understand this, the better you're going to be at closing deals. You're going to do it quicker, you're going to do it more effectively, and you're actually going to deliver better service. Is there a true need for this? How big of a priority is my product or service, within your overall objectives? And the timeline, how soon are you going to buy? And some people will say, oh no, but this is more business to business. No, this applies to anything. If it's consumer, they already have probably the authority because they're buying for themselves. So now what we're identifying is the need. What is relevant to them? And how soon can we get them to buy? So it's the same thing, it's just managed a little bit different depending on the segmentation of your customer base. Okay? This process of qualifying serves as a filter to identify the real potential customers and therefore make you more effective. Because if you're focusing on 10 opportunities equally, but only 2 have true potential, your time is not being used productively. So you want to make sure that you are being as effective as you can. And if we are to line that up with our CRM, what we're saying is throughout this phase, we are monitoring in our CRM the adherence to this qualification process. That we're asking the right questions to see if there's a real interest in buying, which allows you to rank them so that you know which ones need more follow-up. Because if I have a customer that's going to buy in a year and I have a customer that's going to buy next week, I probably would do better if I focus on the one that's going to buy next week now and then worry about the one that's going to buy in a year in a couple of weeks or a couple of months. Okay, so again, it's just to help you be sharper in how you're managing your time with regards to these opportunities. It is also important to measure your conversion rates. What percentage of your prospects are turning into opportunities because they're qualified? And what percentage of the opportunities that move beyond the qualification process are actually being closed? Because that is going to tell you if your qualification process is working. So you want to make sure that these are things that you are considering in the process. Okay? So having said that, we're going to move to phase 3, which is usually identifying the needs of the customer. Here's where we go in and we do a deeper dive about what are they really looking for. What is it they want? What is it they need? And do we have the right product or service to meet those needs and those wants? Because at the end of the day, it has to be a value proposition that makes sense to the customer. It has to be a product that addresses their challenges or needs. So you want to make sure that you've done that properly. That is also going to show in your sales cycle, because what a lot of people do is, they find out when they're trying to close a deal that they didn't really identify their needs and they have to go back. And that's delaying, your time to revenue, your time to closing deals. So the word of advice, the tip is do not limit your effort to basic needs, but also invest time to understand the personal goals of the individual making the decision, their preferences, their desires, and even their dreams. Many times there's a huge opportunity to sell them a lot more if only we knew where they're heading. So get enough information to know them better and to become an indispensable ally in value. It's not about the product. It's about the value that you are offering both in the process and in the product. Okay, I talk to my team all the time. Let's not focus on the features. Let's not focus on what our technology does. Let's focus on the benefit it provides the customer. That's a language that they can understand. So again, if we're going to tie this up with our CRM, we're making sure that our CRM allows us to monitor adherence to this process of capturing personal needs, business needs, if we're talking about a B2B customer, and the product-related needs. That's going to help you, A, identify the right product faster, B, offer a more relevant value proposition, 3, add more overall value, and 4, accelerate the closing cycle. Okay, so again, we are building up to that agility that we have to close deals more effectively and to become, more of a trusted advisor to our customer. The fourth phase is the value proposition. It's not the quote, it's not a proposal. It is the value that we are proposing to the customer. Why does this make sense? Okay, and at this stage, what we're trying to do here is making sure that the product and services that we identify to meet their needs truly provide them with benefits and value that exceeds their expectations. We want to show them how it meets their requirements, but we also want to show them how much more they can, benefit from this solution, how much more they're going to get out of it. Because oftentimes a customer is looking for something specific to address a specific problem or need. But that doesn't mean that's the only problem or need they have. And understanding this goes to the crux of your ability to upsell and to cross-sell. So you want to know, does this meet your objective or does this exceed your expectations? Okay, and I prefer we be in the exceed range because that also sets us apart from the competitor. It gives us extra value to leverage when it comes to closing. So our goal here is to show, to demonstrate that the customer can have a better future with us because we are not just selling them products and services, we are an indispensable ally in value. We are offering value in the relationship. We are bringing more than they are expecting. And if we're going to line this up with the CRM, what we're doing here is we're monitoring the implementation, which means the execution of best practices. So when we issue a proposal, we demonstrate why we are the best fit, why we are a better option than our competitor. We demonstrate the return on investment. And we show the tangible competitive value of doing business with us. Okay, this is important because, again, we're not looking to satisfy expectation. We are looking to exceed expectations. Okay, and finally, you want to validate, okay, that this information and that this value is getting to the decision maker. And that this value is also a key component of their decision-making process, especially in the B2B segment. Okay, so again, we're getting it to the next level when we talk about the value proposition, and we're assuring that we're bringing something more, that we're exceeding those customers' expectations. Now we're going to talk about negotiation, right? So we've delivered a value proposition that meets all the requirements, or better yet, exceeds them. We've demonstrated the tremendous value of doing business with us versus the competitor. So now we're going to go into a situation that, hey, they want to change conditions, they want to change terms, they want to get you to lower your price, right? When we are at this stage, we consider that to be a negotiation. So anytime that the customer says, I want this changed, and it has nothing to do with the right fit, because if not, you're going to have to go back to designing the right solution for the customer. But if it has to do with terms and conditions that are negotiable, then you want to make sure that you're applying key practices like proactive listening, that you are listening to what they're saying so that you can answer and provide a solution that addresses those concerns, that you are managing objections objectively, not defensively or aggressively or passive aggressively, okay, and that you are applying a win-win strategy. If you're doing these things, the likelihood of you closing this deal are going to be incrementally higher. Okay? And then finally, if we're going to link this up with the CRM, this is a stage where we monitor adherence to our negotiation techniques, and we, as sales leaders, make sure that we are coaching and participating in the sales cycle so that we don't lose it at the very end simply because we couldn't negotiate appropriately or we couldn't manage their objections appropriately. Okay, so all of these phases, as you can see, have a role to be monitored in your CRM, and it also should be creating notifications so that management can get involved on a timely manner. And once we've, gone through the process of negotiation and we are confident that we have that win-win solution on the table, this is where we go in and we go for the signature. Okay, we get the acceptance of the order or the contract or the PO, whatever it is that you use. You want to make sure that you close the deal. Oftentimes, we see a ton of excellent sales execs that can go through the whole process, but they're very shy when it comes to closing. And they continue to let the customer dwell and extend and roll over dates. You want to make sure that if you've addressed everything the customer needed and you've demonstrated value and you've negotiated terms, that you go in for that deal because it's time to move on to the next one. Okay, so how do we manage this in the CRM? We are measuring closing time. How long are they taking to close? Okay, what is the duration of stages 1 in general? If I know that it normally takes me 6 months or it takes me 2 days, where do I see disparity? Those that are showing disparity are the ones that we should be tackling. Okay, and we ensure that we're using best practices. Okay, that we are, applying those techniques that we know are going to help us get that close. And we want to make sure that we do this as efficiently and as quickly as possible without turning off the customer. Okay, we have to watch it because if we get too aggressive, then we may turn them off. Okay, but all these phases, which go through your traditional sales cycle, they can all be managed through a CRM, and that's what we're trying to show you. How do we take these stages and how do we convert them into automation in your CRM, whether it be through workflows, notifications, or approvals, and then more importantly, that your sales management team, because they understand what each phase means, that they're asking the right questions and providing the right level of coaching and support to the sales teams so they can be more effective. Okay, so I hope that that has served as a general guideline as to why we go through these stages, what is the objective of these stages, and of course, how do we manage that with our technology. Now we're going to talk a little bit about identifying the problem. So once you know, hey, yes, my pipeline is not being managed adequately, we're not closing enough deals in the time that we need to, and you're realizing that this is really an issue, you need to start now doing a deeper dive. What exactly is slowing the process? Is it the design of the solution? Is it the preparation of the quote? Is it the negotiation process? Because you're going to apply different tactics depending on what is slowing it down. Okay, are your salespeople wasting time and energy on prospects that are really not going to pan out because they haven't been properly qualified? And that's why I go through that qualification process in detail, because if I don't have a real project, I'm investing a lot of my time on something that might eventually never happen. Okay, are there too many decision makers in your company? And is this creating unnecessary bureaucracy? Okay, you need to identify this so that you can make it more efficient, so you can bypass some of these things, so you can build process and governance to ensure that your salespeople can be as agile as possible. Is the business failing to follow up? Is it that, oh yeah, well, you said that we were going to focus on those that were highly qualified, so therefore we forgot to follow up on everybody else? No, that's not what we said. We said you're going to prioritize those that are higher ranked and closing quicker. But you're also going to follow up on the other ones because those are the pipeline of the future. So you want to make sure there's the right balance between attacking those that are ready to buy now and nurturing those that are ready to buy later. Okay, and are you seeing a situation where these opportunities are moving very, very fastly, and then at the end, when we're at the closing stage, it just lags on forever? And inexplicably, the customer's dragging their feet. That is usually a sign that one of the previous stages has not been carried out properly, or that it's not really qualified to buy. So all these are red flags that you need to be looking at, and then you need to be asking yourself the questions that are going to generate the actions required for the answers that you need. So again, really, really important that you identify the problem and that you ask the right questions internally. Having said that, now we're going to go a little bit into pipeline management, okay, which is at the core of this webinar. How exactly are we going to do this? What is it that we're looking at? And the traditional funnel, right? That's that classic funnel. Well, guess what? In today's world, that funnel is really not as important anymore. The funnel is simply now something that tells you, hey, Here are all my opportunities based on value, and you can see this here in the upper left-hand screenshot. And that's a traditional funnel. And I changed it around a little bit just to show you maybe the funnel doesn't give you the picture that you need. You know, maybe what you need is something like this that says, oh my God, I have most of my business in qualification. So if I really want to close more deals, I need to get these to move to the bottom here where I'm already at proposal or negotiation stage. Okay, so now you're seeing the funnel in a different view, but it's probably triggering action because you're seeing where your money is, and then you're making the decisions that you need to so that they move down the pipeline into the stage in which you are closer to closing them. But you see, the funnel is not just that. It's also, what are my activities? Because if I have a lot of stuff in negotiation stage and I do a drill down on my activities and I'm focusing on prospecting, you know, there may be something off. Maybe I need to be focusing more on closing calls so that I ensure that my activities deliver the results. You know, and how are those activities tracking? As you can see here on the third dashboard on the screenshot on the left versus the past. If I'm doing the same, am I getting the same results? So maybe I need to shift that around a little bit. You know, then I can see my pipeline by month. So let me not only see where they are in stage, but how soon are they going to close? You know, because right now, if I'm in June, I want to know that June and July have enough business for me to reach my targets. I may not be that worried about November and December, but I do want to know that I have enough now and that I have sufficient to reach to my target in December. So that's why you're looking here. Hey, this is what your close dates look like. This is how much you have for July. This is how much you have for August. This is how much you have for September. Okay, and of course you want to compare that to your sales target, because if you've already reached your target, then there may not be that much urgency to just try and focus on closing the deals that I have for this month because I've already exceeded the target. Maybe this is the moment and the window that I need to look at what we're doing for October, November, December. And how come September is so low when we're only 3 months away? Okay, and the other thing you want to look at is your top opportunities. Why? Because of that 20-80 rule. What are the opportunities that have 80% of the value? They are usually the fewer. And that, as a sales manager and as an account executive, should define your priority. Because many times, if you lose a big one, that's the equivalent of losing maybe 10 or 15 small ones. And the reverse is opposite. If we win a big one, that's the equivalent of winning, you know, 15 or 10 or 20 of the smaller ones. So we're going to be more effective if we're closing the bigger ones. So as you can see, the pipeline is not just that traditional funnel. It's a series of dashboards that give you insight as to what you have and how long it's going to close and what you're actually doing to close it. Okay, and here's another view of the pipeline. This one here shows you a Kanban chart where you can see, hey, this is how much money I have in qualification needs, but now not only do I see the amount, I can see the specific opportunities so that I can focus on those specific opportunities. Okay, so we are redefining a little bit, you know, the traditional classic pipeline and what that looks like with how we should be managing the pipeline today and into the future. And that's the beauty of technology, right? It provides us with all these tools to do all these amazing things. And, you know, that's at the crux of making sure that, you know, you have the right tools to be successful in the process. Here, I did a deeper dive. I kind of said, okay, so presume that you click on that pipeline and now you're going to have your opportunity review meeting with your team. What am I looking for? Okay, and here are some of the things that I consider to be really important. So yeah, the opportunity, the contact, the stage, that's all very valuable. But now I want to do a deeper dive. So how long have I been in this stage? So for example, if I start looking at stage versus duration, and I have a proposal that's been in the same stage for 280 days, and then I look at the aging and it's been 425, I mean, this thing has been dragging on for more than a year. So what exactly is going on here, right? I mean, these, by you analyzing the pipeline in detail, the questions that you have to ask are going to become very, very evident if you have accurate information. Okay, and then again, you know, why do I have this in closing for May of 2017. I mean, so not only is this thing been here 280 days, I have to wait another 5 months. Okay, and now that drives this conversation. What is the next step? What should I really be doing? Okay, you're going to review the proposal with the customer to reconfirm concession and payment terms. If that's really what you're doing, what's wrong with this picture? You shouldn't be in proposal. You should be in negotiation stage. So you see, all these things have to line up so that you can start identifying the actions that are going to help you be more effective and close more deals and do that quicker. Okay? So I'm highlighting here in red some things just to kind of give you a little bit of red flags. Okay? When you look at your pipeline, you're looking at, what is this stage, but how long has it been there? Right? And when do you expect to close it? Okay? Because if you expect to close it on January 30th and you're here in qualification stage, guess what? I don't think you're going to close it. Okay, but if you're going to close it on January 30th and you're in negotiation stage, I buy it. I buy it. I mean, basically you're going to be doing closing stuff. Oh, but wait, your next step is review the solution design? Then you're not in negotiation stage. You're still defining what you're going to sell. Do you see how this is all going to start working? Like it's really like a crystal ball, except that it's facts. There's no guesswork here. Okay? And then you're going to say, okay, if this is really ready to buy, what is your closing plan? Okay? Because build trust, that's not a closing plan. That's a pipe dream. Closing plan is more like, hey, I'm going to review the return on investment with them. I'm going to show them some other success stories that we have. And I'm going to use John Smith, who's a customer in the same industry, to serve as a reference. That sounds to me like a closing plan. And of course, all this should be in relation to your competitors, because that will help you understand their strengths and their weaknesses so that you can, set your differentiation and make that clear when you present that value proposition or when you go through these details with the customer. You have to become unique in what you're offering and in the value that you're giving that customer. So again, here's a general illustration. I've highlighted in red those things that don't make sense because it's obvious that you're not managing the pipeline properly if you don't have sufficient information in it to be able to call out those opportunities that are not making sense because they're in the wrong stage, because they have the wrong closing date, because the steps are not consistent with the stage, because your closing plan isn't clearly defined or incomplete as to this point, because you don't understand the competitors. So again, just a huge opportunity for you to take that pipeline management process to the next level. Look at these columns that we have here. I hope they serve you as a reference. If you're already using the pipeline really, really well, like 20% of you said you were, guess what? You guys need to go back here and say, okay, do the information that I have there, help me see what are the things that I'm missing, because that might be your opportunity for improvement. So let's talk about some, more specific tips here on accelerating your pipeline. Number one is standardize your best practice. If everybody's doing things a different way, you're not going to know what's wrong, and you're certainly not going to be able to fix it. So, what are the things that we know work, and are we all doing those? Okay, so if somebody works for someone, share that. I call that collaboration. Okay, share that. Make sure we recognize the people that share their information, and let's make sure we recognize the people that are using the information that they have learned from others. Okay, because that's going to create a very interesting dynamic in the organization that I'm going to talk about in a little bit. Okay, it's important that you have a sales process, a methodology, and those processes need to have stages with very specific outcomes and very specific metrics so that you know exactly what's expected of each sales exec with respect to every opportunity that they're working. And if that's not consistent, you're never going to have a pipeline that you can use, because you're really going to be creating more confusion and you're not going to be giving very clear direction. Okay, so standardize the best practices. Train your sales team in the cause of the process. Why? Because it's going to make you more effective, because it's going to provide a better customer experience, because it's going to help you close more deals, because it's going to help you. Tell them why. It's not that we're just doing this for the heck of it. We're doing it because we're trying to make you better and we're trying to get more business. And here's how. Okay, because when the salespeople don't understand, they don't buy into it, and all of a sudden, all this becomes theory, academic, and more work, and they call it administrative stuff. And as you've heard so far, there's nothing administrative about what we've been discussing. So it's really important that we do that. We also want to automate those practices with notifications, workflows, and automated tasks. You know, if you get to a certain stage and there's 3 steps that you need to take, then when you hit that stage, create the automation so that those tasks are created and assigned to the sales exec. Okay, if it reaches a negotiation stage and you know that your team is not really great at closing, then you might want to be notified so you can help them and guide them and coach them. Okay, this is going to help you be a lot more effective. Use rules to ensure compliance. For example, allow them to do a certain level of discounting, but if they go above that level of discount, create an automation so that you can approve it in the CRM. Don't create more bureaucracy and layers. If you do it in the CRM, you'll have all the audit trails you need to ensure governance and compliance. Also validate that minimum requirements are met. You know, we might not get too, fidgety about, a $2 deal. But if it's a big deal, you want to make sure there's the few things that you know are most important in you closing a deal, that those are met. For instance, if I have a huge deal, it's $500,000, and I see that you haven't yet made contact with the C-level executive that makes a decision, I know that there's something that's missing. So I want to make sure that at least we've had access to that C-level executive. Okay, you establish that based on your process, your products, and your competition. And generate notifications that involve the stakeholders in a timely manner. How many times have we not heard our manager calling us out because we lost a deal? Many times, right? Now, how many times have we heard them come in before it's too late to offer a helping hand? And that might not be as many times. So you want to make sure that you get notified about certain milestones in the process with enough time to make a difference in the process. Okay, that's going to be absolutely crucial. All right, so these are, again, key things that we need to do to standardize those best practices. I promise you, you do some of these things, you're going to see immediate results. Here's some more tips. Once you've clearly defined the sales process and why, make sure that you have a pipeline review meeting at least once per week. Okay, and don't make it a 5-hour meeting. If you have 3 teams, maybe team 1 is pipeline review is on Monday, team 2 is on Tuesday, team 3 is on Thursday. Okay, because people, you get to wear them out if they're too long in the same meetings. Okay, and then you can classify. You might say, oh my God, but I handle millions of opportunities. Great, then in those meetings, talk about the top 10 deals. Talk about the ones that are of more value. Okay, talk about the ones that you feel need more help. You choose your agenda. What we are proposing is that you at least review your pipeline once per week. Okay, and train your sales leaders on true pipeline management. It's not just about seeing the graph. It's about doing the deeper dive and asking the hard questions. That's going to get you there much quicker and much more effectively. Okay, also, you need to measure results. Of course, everybody does that, but are we measuring effort? Are we measuring adherence to the process? And sometimes those are the intangibles that produce the results, but we're overlooking them because we're just looking at the results. So what are we talking about? We're talking about the fact that most successful sales leaders, okay, are able to make better decisions and hence take corrective action in a much more proactive way because they're seeing the problem before it occurs. Okay, so this is important. So what are the things that you want to be looking at? Your sales pipeline, we discussed that. Your top 10 opportunities, your wins versus your objectives, all that, that's important. The number and types of prospects that you have. The opportunity conversion rate. Okay, that's why we talk here about not just did I reach the target, how much of your opportunities are converting? Because if you have a low conversion rate, you probably have a qualification issue or you have a bad lead issue. Okay, so you can't tackle the problem unless you're doing the analysis. You know, adherence to best practices. You know, if it's important in your process to make contact with the C-level executive, then you need to have something in your application, in your CRM, that allows you to know if that has happened or not. Okay, that way you can check that they're being done. Your closing rate, what percentage of your qualified opportunities are actually you're winning? How accurate is your forecast? You know, what is your lost sales analysis? What are you doing with the deals that are lost? Is that just something for God, or is that something that's used for learning, for being more competitive, for training, for making sure that we don't lose for the same reasons in the future? Even measure tactical activities. You know, I want to measure every cross-selling call you do. I want to measure every time you call to push a new product. Okay, I want to see what you're doing beyond the pipeline. Okay, these are all critical to our process. So really, really important that we're taking a closer look at all these elements. And here are 5 key metrics. You know, if the previous slide seems like too much, you know, look at activities. Look at conversion rates. That's from lead to opportunity. Look at win rates. Look at the deal size and the number of transactions, because if you see that your guys are killing it, they're closing 500 deals a month, and they're still not hitting their target, maybe their target is not well set. Okay, maybe their target has to be lower. But if the opposite is happening, maybe their target has to be higher. So you need to make sure that you're looking at the bigger picture so that you can know if they're actually doing a good job or not. And of course, look at the sales cycle length. How long is it taking? So we're giving you a full deck here with a lot of information, but if you're going to choose 5, look at these, because these are going to give you an overall picture of, you know, what you're doing well and what you might not be doing so well. And I spoke before about, you know, the culture, right? The organizational dynamic. You know, I believe, and you're going to hear me say this in many of our webinars, that, you know, you want to look at all aspects of the process, but you want to be able to learn and share the things that are working for your people, because many times we're stuck in the past, which means we're looking at old processes, but we're not looking at what's working now. And maybe we can do away with some of all those old processes and learn what's working through collaboration and using the collective intelligence of the team. So any tool that you can use to collaborate, whether it be chat or communities, use it. Involve other areas of the business, okay, and use a portal for ideas. Create a mechanism so that ideas come to your attention. If not, you're going to continue to do the same old stuff, okay? And finally, measure the qualitative performance. Are people getting certified? Okay, are people following best practices? That's not measured in numbers. That's measured in qualitative levels. So you have to review those as well. And finally, encourage and promote the professional development of your teams through recognition, training opportunities, certifications, and incentives. That's going to drive even more intelligence into the team, and that's going to harness that power of collaboration within your organization. So you want to make sure these are things that you're looking at. Okay. Finally, you know, in general, I'm going to say that best practices are born from organizational experience. It's not something you Google. It's not something that you're going to necessarily learn at a trade show. It's by looking at what's working internally. Many times, you know, we preoccupy ourselves with what everybody else is doing well, and we're not recognizing what we're doing well internally. So take a look at that. Many times the answers are closer than you think. You know, that will give you the opportunity to truly unlock the potential of your organization. Okay, so with that thought, I'm going to open it up for questions and answers. We have 7 minutes left here. So I'm going to ask you guys, go ahead and shoot. I know that we had some questions that people posted when they signed up. So Diana, I'm going to allow you to take me through those questions, and we'll start with those. And we ask you guys, go here into the question section and you know, participate. Ask us, you know, anything that you feel can help you manage your pipeline better. Whether we covered it or not, I am sure that either we can give you a good answer or do some research on your behalf. So Diana, please go ahead with the questions.
Yes, thank you, Mariano. I have a few questions here. The first one, how can I identify where my pipeline is failing?
Great. So I think, I would say if you have to start somewhere, look at the accuracy of the information. Like, first of all, because if people are not using it and they're not putting in the right information in your, opportunities, you're never going to get to correct the problem, right? You're not going to find an answer to that question. So that's number one. Ensure people are using it and ensure that the information is accurate. Number two is create that report, that I showed you before. Have something that looks like this, where you can go in and do a deeper dive. Because there's not a one size fits all answer for that, right? It might be that you didn't qualify it properly. In other words, you never really had an opportunity. It might be that you didn't really follow best practices. Your value proposition didn't drive the message of value that you wanted it to. It could be that your people are not skilled at negotiating and closing deals. It could be that you are presenting the wrong product. It could be that you're out of price. I mean, it could be anything. But if you have a pipeline that looks like the one that I'm showing here on the screen, you'll be able to identify what's going on with a particular deal. And once you start seeing which of these issues are most common, then you can derive an action plan to correct them, at a general level in your sales organization. So I hope that helps.
Thank you. Jessica is asking, what aspects of the pipeline should be automated?
So great question, right? I'm an enemy of too much automation because then they become spam. In other words, if I get 50 notifications a day, I may not give them the attention because I know they're automated, so I'll focus on other things, and eventually I'll probably forget to follow up on them. So the key thing is, what do you automate? You automate what's crucial to achieving your goal. So if a huge opportunity, okay, is now in the negotiation stage, you want to be notified. So you want to create automation for that. If an opportunity exceeds a certain number of days in a specific stage that you know is crucial to moving the opportunity, you want to be notified. Okay, so that's just two examples of notifications. Another automation is approvals. If you want to manage discounts more effectively, automate those and create the audit trail so that the governance process is adhered to. So I absolutely 100% recommend the automation of approvals. I also recommend the automation of quotes, because many times I see that my customers, they have the CRM, they love it, they use it, but then when it's a quote, they have to go to another system. And all the information is already in the CRM. So it's kind of double work. So, automate your quotes, make sure that they're part of your CRM. Validation rules. Make sure that, you can't move a stage, to negotiation if you don't even know the products that you're going to sell. I mean, that's something as basic as that. So you create certain rules to prevent salespeople from shortcutting or short-circuiting the system. So those are some examples. Now, I'm not recommending one or the other because I don't know your specific situation. We will give you much more, I would say, relevant advice if we knew what your case was. But that's just to give you some examples of important automation that's truly going to make you be much more effective and accelerate your sales management process.
Perfect. Let's go for another one. Patrick is asking what aspects, what specific actions can I take to speed up my pipeline?
Manage it. Manage it. I'm going to go back to this same slide that I'm showing. Have good information that's up to date and start identifying where your stop gaps are. Where are things getting bottlenecked? And if you start seeing that, all of one of these things is red, they'll tell you exactly what you have to work on. So if all of these next steps were wrong, I need to work on helping my people determine how to put next steps in here. If all my closing plans don't seem like closing plans, then I need to help them build better closing plans. If I see that all my opportunities or most of my opportunities are taking too long in a particular stage, attack that. So the only way for you to correct the problem is to know what the problem is. And the only way to know what the problem is to have visibility of your pipeline. And the only way to have true visibility of your pipeline is to make sure that the information is accurate and that everybody's using it. So that's kind of how it works.
Perfect. I think
Okay, we have 1 minute. Any more questions?
yes. They want to know what is the most crucial phase of the sales pipeline.
So, okay, well, that's a tricky question, right? So I always think that there's two that are critical. One is the qualification, because if I don't qualify properly, I'm going to spend endless hours on a customer that's never going to be a customer. So to me, that one, you know, truly affects productivity at a level that most people cannot even imagine. And the other one is the needs assessment, needs analysis. The better I understand what the customer is trying to achieve, the more I know their personal needs, their business needs, and their technical needs or solution needs, the better I'll be able to do everything else in the process. So if you want to go by specifics, those are the two that I'd recommend you absolutely get right, because they're the ones that are going to have the most impact in your productivity and in your effectiveness.
Perfect. Thank you.
All right. So any more questions? It's 12 o'clock, so we met our goal. Thank you everybody for participating in